Hi, this is a JavaScript tutorial or example for 3D Carousel with CSS and GSAP. I won't be using jQuery. It's based on the previous example tutorial of playing around with sine and cosine, which you can find on my channel. Okay, let's get to it. So, my standard structure, image from the previous one, this was the previous example, playing with cosine and sine. So I've got the moon in the images folder, and in my includes folder I got two categories, JS and CSS. And I got tween max, the minified version, our application, which is empty, and CSS styles, which is also empty. So let's have a look at the page and get started. So I'm including the styles in the HTML document. I'm including tween max, minified, and our application. Our application will run on load via the function page load init. CSS is blank, and our application has a little bit in there. So our page load init function will be called once our page is ready. This is where I shall program our 3D carousel. And my lazy man function for console.log, I hate typing that all the time. Two functions which we might need, which is degrees to radians, not radians to degrees. I don't think we'll need that. And an output to a HTML tag for visual debug, which I will add to the HTML shortly. So let's first of all set our HTML up. We are going to build a carousel. So let's give it an ID carousel. And our carousel is going to have a container for items, carousel items. So I'm going to call this item container. And I want an output. So any values I can show you clearly. So scrolling down through the console log. And I want to visually see a carousel item before we build the carousel. So the only thing to really care about is that one. So let's have a look. Looks good. And let's build our carousel. So let's get the CSS item set up first. So that's going to be our carousel dot item, which is going to be we want the moon. We want same as this, just a bit taller and thinner. Now it shall be position absolute, width, let's say 100 pixels, height 100 pixels, background is RGB alpha, black with 0.5. URL image path is relative to the CSS file. Image is moon.png. So let's just have a quick look. Good. Background size is fit. Or cover. And height 200 pixels. Better. Background position minus 20 pixels. Best guess. Just bring it into the center. Looks about right. Borders. Let's have a border. Pixel solid. Now, not to affect the size, the width of the item, I want the borders to be inset. And this is done with box sizing. Which is border box, border box, border box. Correct. And so if we refresh that. Perfect. And I want it rounded. Looks good to me. So this would be inside the carousel, of course. So we encapsulate our class inside carousel, item class. And now let's set up a carousel area. Position relative, so all absolute items inside are relative to the carousel. Its width, say 600 pixels, height 300 pixels, and so we can see it. Border 1 pixel, solid. Margin auto to center it on the screen. That looks fine. So our 3D carousel is going to be built in there. And let's get to that. Let's clean up the HTML. We don't need to see the item anymore. And so, okay. Page load, on load, page load init. So, page load init. Our app is going to be called Carousel. That's right. So here we start building it. Variable carousel equals function custom object. Our definitions. Helper scope. Me equals this. If we ever need it, I just put it in there just in case. Bit of autopilot. And configuration variables, which the user should edit, and working variables, do not modify. So our width, height, we could work this out dynamically, but say if you're using a jQuery plugin, or if you're building this as a jQuery plugin, you would, specify your arguments as options. But we're just going to write them straight in. So we've got right. So carousel width 600 from the CSS. Carousel height, which is 300 from the CSS. And our items. Item width is, I've forgotten, 100. And item height is 200. We are going to have item count. Number of items to add. So we're going to start off with 1. Items is going to be an array of references to the items. And DOM elements var carousel equals document.get element by ID carousel. And carousel container, item container, is going to be the carousel get element by class name, which is item container. I always like to do this. Just works for me. And log carousel.init. Give it a run. Output is there. That's fine. I want to move this utility function in here. So if you include this as a single file, it comes with it instead of anything you're relying on anything outside. Which you could say the same for that. And flat. Let's just move them all in. May as well. That's keep on global. Should be deleted. Yeah, just in case we have scope issues, just keep them outside. That one is some functional aspect, so it should be encapsulated. Okay, so first of all, we want to add one and proceed from there. Add item method, and we're going to have an animation method as well. So for I that equals 0, that is less than items length I plus add item. Obviously we pass. Real world example would be loading JSON list, or so you'd pass parameters here like title, image to use, and click link, etc. But for this one we're just going to show you animation for 3D CSS carousel using sine and cosine. That would be there. That would be number of items to add. So yeah, after running that, init and adds an item. So let's work on add an item. For item equals is a div dot create element div item has a class of dot item in the CSS. Yeah. Remember, we're adding these to this. They're going to appear here. So carousel item container. Item and anything else? I think that's it. We should assign it a unique ID if you want to do something later on, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So also now I'm gonna store items in the items array for reference and animation. So I'm going to create an item instead of storing the item directly, which just gives us the div. I'm going to create an item object, which allows us to expand and grow it easily. So item equal item is item. I know that is related to this, so that gives us item definition value there on the right side. So now we've created the item, create the item object. We need to append the item to the carousel container, which we've got here. I think it's append or prepend, append child item. Let's have a look. There we have it. So let's just animate this, which is our init. And let's just divide these up for easier reference. I find it helps with readability. Animate. So animate will repeat a loop. I'm going to do that on request animation frame itself. And this is where we want cosine and sine to come in. So our sine value is going to be for the x-axis. Now I want to do this as literal as possible to keep it optimized, to keep it optimal. And I want a range of 0 to 1 for both sine and cosine. So Math.sin. We also need angle in working variables. As this works in radians, this is where our little function comes in. We don't want to type this constantly, so take to rad degrees, and this would be the range of movement in our carousel. Range x, which I haven't defined yet. So open, close. Calculate range x. Equals carousel width. And we're going to come back to that because that's going to give us an error, a bug. So out sine. Let's call that deg. Fine. Needs to increment on entry. As you can see, it moves insanely too fast, so let's slow that down to just get this number correct. Let's increase the font size for you guys. As you can see, it goes from -1 to +1. Not what we want. We need 0 to 1. And that needs to come out outside there. We need that needs to be performed first. And -1 to 1. So that gives us. This is not there. Sorry. 0.5. Oh, let's yeah, that's better. 0.01. Half it, so it's actually negative 0.5 to plus 0.5. That's correct. And if we add 0.5 as an offset, that should be 0 to 1. Perfect. So let's just apply this to our single item, which is for loop I equals 0. I is less than the number of items we have, which is stored in our reference items array. Length I plus plus. And our item object equals items I. We can just literally talk to object.item, which is a div element up here. So it has a style property, which has a left property, and this takes a strings only. So pause position x plus px, and we don't have x yet, so pause x equals for now. Typos. That is only moving from very, very tiny, so we need the range now. This is the range x, which is the carousel width. Range x. So this goes to 0 to 1. Sine is 0 to 1. 0 times 600 is 0. 600 times 1 is 600. So multiplied by range. Just verify this. We could if we added an item. Oh, we have a item. We call animate. Yeah, nowhere in there. Items.line. What are we now getting there? Dear me. Item object, which is this. Item object, which is item dot style left. Carousel container, we add this to. Item container, sorry. Oh, little bugs. Pen child is not for each other. And item container. Yes. This returns an array. The first item on the array is the actual element, and that would back to append child. There we go. And let's fix this now. Oh, I pushed it onto the items array. Items stores our references to the items on the carousel, so items object push. Thus, this wouldn't run, and all this nonsense. So let's run that. Just go on, yeah, log item object. It's got it. Item div item. Name it something else, so it's nicer. Well, let's have a look at this. Let's just run it once. That should have found that. Oh dear. Me debugging earlier on. It doesn't 0 to 1. So it's less than 1, because there's only one item and now we're on 0, so it doesn't have 2. Less than null. Undefined. So that should work now, apart from I've renamed it. And there we go. So there's a basic sine animation there. As you've noticed, we exceed the dimensions of our carousel. This is item width. This is why range X has been defined, because it's item width minus. There we go. Okay, let's add the Y dimensions. So that's sine from 0 to 1, and this is cosine from 0 to 1. If we run that. So we got the circle, and we need the range Y. Carousel height, item height. Because that's that width, but the height of this taken away from it, so we don't have the same bug as before. Now there we have it. So let's get multiple items in. So let's just start off with 4. Now, as you can see, they've all been stacked up on top of each other. So we don't want that, and it's also got to be offset. So the animate function, it needs to have one of these per an item. Bring this in here, and degrees, we need, each item is going to be on a circle and evenly divided, so it's 360 degrees divided by the number of items. Sorry. And we need to append this on to the for loop. So the number of items we loop through, adding the degree step of each item on the carousel. So var item degree deg is deg plus 360 divided by number of items to add. Because we're working from 0, we need to minus 1 from that. And multiply it by I. And swap that. Now, as you can see, the equation is incorrect, but you can get some rather interesting results. Path animations, following, stuff like that. Now, we don't want that. So for degree item degree separation equals 360 divided by number of items to add. Minus 1. This also needs to be deg to rad. And that's the one. So it speeds us up. So add a few more items. Say 10. So you have the basics of the carousel there now. You have to use this, the sine and cosine calculation. It works in radians, not degrees. Fine for one object, but not for more than one. We'll also move this to here, so the calculation isn't done on every loop. Yeah, that's fine. And save, refresh. Okay, let's fix z-index. So if I slow this down, you will see it gives incorrect 3D, which is shown off there. As you can see, is it going forward or is it going back? It gives quite a strange optical illusion. So, but fixing the z-index will solve that. So we'll do our own little algorithm for z-index sorting, which is based on sine. X-axis is sine, cosine is y or z, so that's what we're going to use for z-axis, the cosine. So for z-index equals cosine is 0 to 1, so but we don't want to z-index is of 0, so we'll start off with 1 and how many Z indexes do we want to have available? Let's have 100. So item object. Z index equals Z index. Okay, let's debug this with adding an item to this. We shall create another div item called label. Label shall have CSS. Of, what was it called? Make sure we see it. So that adds the item to the container. This we want to add to the item. That should work. Let's set the HTML for it, default. Cool. Now, just want to add a variable here, item count. There we go. So you can see the Z indexes are totally wrong. So let's fix it. Now this is going to give us point numbers. So out Z index. We're going to round it. Let's have a look at the values. Yeah. And there we go, we have a 3D carousel. With a depth sorting Z-index capabilities. Now, let's add some effects, make it a bit better. Now, cosine is working on the Z, the Y. Let's remove that box. So let's play with scale. So the further in the back it goes, the smaller it goes. So to give a sense of depth, even more depth, would be nice. Scale is 0 to 1. We don't want 1, so let's go from 0.5 to +1. Yeah. Scale. And this would be, I think, scale is a transform. And it's a string. Let's test that. Right, it's applied, but as you can see, the value is stuck. This becomes 0 to 1, 0.5 to 1. There we go. as you can see, that when they go to the back, they shrink in size. Let's turn that off. Let's set the opacity as well. So alpha opacity, pretty much the same values. This is fine like that. 0.7, 0.3. Oh, you literally just want it to disappear in the background. Now, let's do some buttons with it. So, also be careful when you're adding too many items. You will overlap. Doesn't work as it's not true 3D. And it could be, and it needs to be built different to handle stuff like that. So your item thickness is going to dictate item thickness, width, and carousel width will dictate to how many items you can have. Or you could increase the carousel height. So you can let it go much further back, but then you need to hack the equation for pos y just to give it what we had before, but limit the range. But for this example, use this. Okay, let's add some buttons so we can navigate our items by a back and next. So let's back to HTML and button class btn back. Previous. Next. Next and back, back and next. Previous, forward, back and forward. Previous and next. That'll do. So we've got two buttons. Let's CSS it up. We're going to both have shared styles. Going to be hover, and this is going to be button previous, next, and the button is going to share position, absolute, background 99, CC 9900. Font size 16 pixels. Z index 400. Keep it above everything. As you can see, these will. I've given it up to 100. I think the cosine multiplication was that. So let's check. Yeah, 100. That's the number of Z indexes. 100's fine. And button hover. Padding 5. Okay. Left, 5 pixels from the left, and 5 pixels from the bottom. 5 pixels from the right. Okay. Let's program this in. No, we're no longer animating, so add item, animate. So let's attach the event listeners. Add some DOM elements. Which is going to be closer to the left. Mouse event for click. Let's put a function for it. It has an event, and we'll log it. Carousel. Check it works. This 10 there. Can't spell today. There we go, so that's working. And next. As you can see, that's working nicely. So our degrees now doesn't animate. So when you do initialize everything, I'm going to use, this is where tween max comes in. We could just timer to the values, but with using something like tween light or tween max, we can use easing functions available, and you can have the bounce, the elastic, the smooth inertia. Choice is yours, but it's just adds so much. So let's create a tween object. And this is going to be our degrees. That's going to start off at 0. Deg. And so tween max.to, our tween object, it's going to happen, our tween is going to take 1 second. We're going to tween the degrees to the step, the increments, the number of degrees between items on the carousel, which is calculated there. So that target degrees is tween object dot deg plus that. happens, we want to on update each time it renders a tween, of course, steps, intervals. On update the value, we want to run the animate function. This should no longer do that, and this should no longer do that. This should now be the tween object dot deg. And there's your next button. Let's bolt in the previous. You could put it all in one line, but just easier to read that way. And this one is minus. And as you notice, when the page is initially loaded, it does that. We just need to run the animate function. Refresh, and there you have a carousel. I like the buttons to be even width, that's just bugging me. And then once the job is done, you can just comment out that, delete that. If you use my function, you'll just say AFTC.debug equals false. So if we change the number of items to 10, 4, 40, it all works fine. So there's your 3D CSS carousel between max inertia. I'll just show you the GSAP ease visualizer. So let's take the, just roll off that. And I'll just chuck it here for now. I do love GSAP. So, that's your CSS 3D carousel with playing around with sine and cosine. Thank you for watching.